Not even bothering to use the door, the two girls crashed through the window, making the mayor jump so hard he nearly fell off of his chair.
"Holy moly, girls!"
he exclaimed, adjusting his monocle. Miss Bellum hurried in at that moment, having heard the crash, and urgently came to see what had caused it.
"Bubbles, Buttercup," she said in surprise. "What's wrong? Where's Blossom?"
"Mayor, Miss Bellum,"
Buttercup began as quickly as she could.
"Yesterday something weird happened to Blossom while we were fighting Mojo Jojo, and she accidentally killed him."
"What?" they both exclaimed in alarm.
"These weird sword things came out of her arms and she ended up slashing right through Mojo. She didn't mean to, but no matter how hard we tried to convince her to tell you what happened, she wouldn't do it. She had us throw his body into the volcano because she was afraid of someone finding it." "We wanted to tell someone," continued
Bubbles, still crying.
"It was an accident, but Blossom kept saying we couldn't tell anyone. So we went home and the professor started asking us questions and Blossom panicked and attacked him. And when we tried to help him, I...
Buttercup choked, trembling with fear at remembering what she had done. She bowed her head and held out her arms, exposing her blades. The mayor and Miss Bellum gasped.
"It happened to me, and the professor is dead too."
"My God,"
whispered Miss Bellum in horror.
"We wanted to tell the professor because we thought maybe he could help us figure out what was happening," said Buttercup. "But Blossom kept saying no. That was before she attacked him. And then she still wouldn't agree to tell, and we destroyed his body too." "We didn't know what to do, so we went to bed, but today she was really weird and was drinking coffee, and when we went to school she left early, and when we came home she was curled up in a corner covered in blood, and we found out that she killed Fuzzy Lumpkins!"
Bubbles cried.
"Me and Buttercup went to his cabin and he was all torn up. It was horrible. I'm so scared. It's going to happen to me next." "I don't care what you do with us,"
Buttercup shouted.
"Just keep us from causing any more harm. Lock us up or something. I don't want to be a killer."
The girls sobbed hysterically, but Miss Bellum and the mayor were so horrified, neither of them knew what to say or do.
"Please help us,"
Bubbles pleaded, and finally Miss Bellum knelt down to hug the girls, trying not to touch Buttercup's arms, but once the blades were retracted again, she didn't need to worry.
"Oh, girls,"
she cooed as the two children continued to sob into her shoulders.
"We'll figure this out. We'll get you help."
"So, Mojo Jojo, Fuzzy Lumpkins, and Professor Utonium are dead?"
asked the mayor in disbelief.
Yes,"
Buttercup replied.
"But we need to get Blossom. We need to help her, too."
There were suddenly screams and crashes from outside the room, and the girls broke away from Miss Bellum, all four of them staring at the door in alarm. The ruckus lasted for a mere 3 seconds before there was the most frightening silence any of them had ever heard. Then came slow, light footsteps before the office door slowly opened.
"I said, don't tell,"
Blossom muttered, her eyes filled with absolute fear. The others' expressions soon matched hers once they took in the entire scene. Behind Blossom, the mayor's employees and guards lay on the floor in their own blood, slashed to pieces. Blossom stood in the doorway, her blades exposed, and holding the head of a blonde woman in her right hand.
"Blossom,"
Miss Bellum said very kindly and gently.
"Honey, everything is okay. You're not in trouble."
"Not in,"
said the mayor, but Buttercup quickly flew to him and covered his mouth to shut him up. Blossom was shaking as her wide pink eyes stared unblinkingly at Miss Bellum, who made sure she was kneeling low enough to the floor to remain at her eye level. She didn't want to seem threatening.
"We will help you,"
she continued, and it was amazing how calm and soothing her voice was.
"We love you, and your sisters only came to us because they're scared. You're scared too, right?"
Blossom dropped the head and nodded slowly.
"Then why don't you put those nasty things away, and we'll help all three of you."
Blossom continued to stare, not moving a muscle except for her trembling. They all watched her anxiously, praying that she'd finally calm down. She didn't. In a flash that was faster than the speed of light, Blossom shot forward and slashed at Miss Bellum, cutting her in half at the waist with one blade and slicing off her head with the other. Bubbles was screaming and crying again, and Buttercup couldn't help but yell in despair as well. The mayor was struggling, and she released him, but as he tried to run, Blossom stepped in front of him, blocking his path.
"Blossom, please don't hurt me,"
he pleaded, kneeling to the floor and bowing his head. She stared down at him, and then slowly shifted her gaze to Buttercup.
I told you not to tell,
she said calmly.
We had to!
Buttercup argued.
You killed Fuzzy! This has to be stopped! Don't you love me?
Blossom asked softly.
Yes! That's why we want to help you! If you cared about me even a little,
said Blossom,
you'd do as I ask. But... Kill him.
What?
Kill the mayor.
Bubbles whimpered, and Buttercup's jaw dropped.
What? No!
She shouted.
I thought I could trust you,
said Blossom, looking back at the cowering mayor.
You're my sister. You're supposed to love me. I do love you,
Buttercup insisted, tears falling from her eyes.
Then do as I say.
Blossom looked back into her sister's green eyes.
Kill him. Blossom! Do as I say!
The sudden shriek made Buttercup flinch, and Bubbles sobbed even more, rocking back and forth on the floor. The mayor looked at Buttercup quickly, pleading to her with his eyes to spare him. However, even though Buttercup didn't want to, she was too afraid of Blossom to disobey. She landed on the floor and walked up to him, eyes sparkling as she cried. She brought out her blades.
I'm sorry,
she mumbled, and before the mayor could even yell, she beheaded him. Bubbles had been close enough to get sprayed with blood, and her sobbing ceased in an instant. Now she simply remained a ball, her eyes wide as Blossom's had been, completely broken. Buttercup knelt over the mare's torso and hugged it desperately, her sobs uncontrollable, repeating, I'm sorry, over and over again. Blossom watched, tears in her eyes as well, and she was filled with guilt despite the fact that she had willingly told Buttercup to do it. Just then there were sirens outside, and Blossom jumped, retracting her blades, Buttercup following suit. Buttercup flew over to Bubbles to help her up, but Bubbles wouldn't come out of her ball. Deciding that she didn't have time to argue, she picked up her traumatized sister and followed Blossom out of the building.
Where are we going?
Buttercup called to Blossom as they passed over their house.
They'll find us there,
she replied.
We're going back to Mojo's lair. Won't they look there too?
Asked Buttercup.
They won't think to look there right away.
This was it. They were criminals. Buttercup had tried her hardest to stop this madness, but despite her best efforts, nearly 20 people were dead, 2 of them by her own hand. As she held poor Bubbles, whose eyes had closed, she hoped to the high heavens that this was not going to happen to her, too. The odds did not look good. Landing in the dark lair, it seemed abnormal to not be greeted with an evil cackle and string of repetitive banter. Buttercup tried to make herself apathetic, but it was impossible.
Is Bubbles okay?
Blossom asked softly, walking up to Buttercup, who instinctively took a step away. Blossom furrowed her brow.
I'm sorry, I panicked! You panicked?
Buttercup repeated incredulously.
You panicked? Blossom, that was a freaking bloodbath! All 3 of us are covered in the stuff! You killed Fuzzy Lumpkins unprovoked, and you massacred everyone in Town Hall even though Miss Bella was going to help us! They wanted to help us! And on top of that, you guilt me into killing the mayor? You're not panicking, Blossom! You're sick! They weren't going to help?
Blossom cried, eyes welling up with tears again.
They were tricking us! They were trying to make us think they were going to help, and then they'd have us executed! If they were going to punish us, they'd lock us up!
Argued Buttercup.
And I think that'd be just fine! Whatever keeps us away from people! We're dangerous now! And we still don't know the reason! Please stop yelling,
came a tiny voice, and the other 2 looked to see Bubbles' eyes open, brimming with tears.
Stop fighting. It's making things worse.
Buttercup exhaled slowly, attempting to calm herself.
She's right,
she said, looking into the pink eyes of her ill sister.
But Blossom, no more. Got it? No more.
Blossom nodded, overcome with confusion and guilt. She didn't understand what was happening to her, but she was determined to try and fight it. Exhausted, the girls didn't bother cleaning themselves up or even taking their bloody clothes off as they settled themselves in Mojo's bed. They had all stopped crying, now feeling more numb than anything. Even though this whole ordeal was not a dream, it was still an extremely horrible nightmare. Cooed a friendly voice. Buttercup stirred, squinting her eyes as she looked around. The room was pitch black, all except for a swirling red vortex stuck to the back of the bedroom door.
What?
She croaked sleepily, rubbing her eyes.
Come here, Buttercup, said the voice. Come here.
Too curious to refuse, Buttercup lifted from the bed and approached the portal, hesitantly staring into it before floating through. It looked like your stereotypical idea of hell, Buttercup standing on a bare cliff with nothing but fire and lava surrounding her. Despite the heat, Buttercup felt chills run up her spine as she tried to figure out where she was.
Nice to see you again, Buttercup,
said a sickly sweet voice right behind her. She spun around to see him standing over her. She would have taken a step back, but she was very close to the edge of the cliff.
Oh, don't be afraid. I just want to talk.
About what?
Buttercup spat angrily.
About those pretty little accessories you have in your arms,
Him replied. Buttercup gasped and suddenly got enraged.
Did you do this to us?
She screamed, but Him simply laughed, waving a claw carelessly.
As much as I'd love to take the credit, I'm afraid that's simply not the case.
Do you know why this is happening?
Asked Buttercup, calming down a bit.
Alas, I do not know that either,
said Him sadly.
But I have been having a blast watching this all play out. I noticed that you're not having too much fun with it, though.
Of course not,
Buttercup shouted, angry again.
I don't like hurting people, let alone killing them. I just want this to be over. I don't want to hurt anyone else.
Even though your sisters need you to?
There was a brief moment of silence.
What?
Said Buttercup after a moment.
Oh, let's face it,
said Him impatiently.
Both Blossom and Bubbles count on you because you're brave and powerful. They trust you. You'd do anything for them.
Wouldn't you?
Yes, but Bubbles doesn't want this either.
Doesn't mean that they don't both need you.
Him knelt in front of Buttercup so that they were at eye level.
Think about it. Blossom needs you to help her with her new obsession. But Bubbles needs you to be there for her when she's all sad and grumpy.
He said that last part with a mock pout.
See? Everybody wins!
Except for me,
Buttercup argued.
Of course you do!
Him laughed, standing up again.
You win the satisfaction that you stood next to both of your sisters. No matter what, sometimes we need to make sacrifices to make other people happy. And in the end, you'll be glad that you were there.
I'm scared,
Buttercup admitted.
You should be.
Without warning, Him used his foot to push Buttercup right off the edge of the cliff. She screamed, finding that she suddenly couldn't fly, but right before falling into the lake of lava, she gasped, finding herself on the floor at the foot of the bed. She lay on her back, staring at the ceiling through the darkness, her mind completely blank. A single tear escaped her eye before she finally scrambled back into bed. When Bubbles woke up, she found it was almost noon, and both of her sisters were missing. Her head pounded as she hopped off the bed and ventured out into the main room to see if she could find them. They were sitting on the floor, Buttercup sadly stroking Blossom's hair as she stared wide-eyed at nothing, trembling.
Is she okay?
Bubbles asked tentatively. Buttercup shook her head and set something gently on the floor. It was a gold tiara with a red jewel, but it was cracked and speckled with a crimson substance. Bubbles covered her mouth, but the tears didn't come this time.
I woke up early this morning and found her sitting on the floor, clutching the crown,
Buttercup explained.
And some of these stains are new.
She pointed to areas on Blossom's dress and face that were more bloody than they had been the day before. Bubbles felt like she couldn't feel anymore, couldn't scream, couldn't cry. She sat in front of Blossom, staring into her eyes, which looked a bit shadowed.
She agreed not to do it again,
Bubbles muttered.
Yeah, well, I guess it was stupid to believe her.
Buttercup shook Blossom gently to try and snap her out of her sickly stupor.
Blossom, come back to us. It's okay. You're safe.
Blossom blinked slowly, looked between her two sisters, and then pulled her knees to her chest, silently starting to cry.
So we're just going to hide forever?
Asked Bubbles.
I don't know,
Buttercup admitted.
I don't know what we're going to do. We had our chance to try and fix this, but Blossom ruined it. I'm sorry.
Blossom sniffled.
I didn't want anyone to know. Well, they know now,
Buttercup snapped.
We can't fix anything. We can't plead for forgiveness. We can't make excuses.
She sighed, trying to hold back the urge to cry again.
I'm so tired.
What happened to Princess's father?
Bubbles asked emotionlessly.
As far as I know, he wasn't home,
Buttercup replied.
Lucky for him. But however selfish and snooty he is, he doesn't deserve the pain he's going to feel when he sees his daughter's body.
Why didn't you go and clean it up?
Said Bubbles.
I had to stay with Blossom. She was panicking so hard she threw up. Bubbles, sometimes...
Buttercup's eyes fell sadly on Blossom.
Sometimes family is more important. We need to stick by each other.
Go do something about Princess, and I'll stay with Blossom,
Bubbles demanded with a level of authority that took Buttercup by surprise. She didn't argue, gently pushing Blossom into Bubbles' arms, and then flying out of the lair to head to the Morbuck's mansion. It was a disgusting sight. Princess, having been an aspiring Powerpuff Girl, appeared to have used her many gadgets and weapons to attempt to defend herself against Blossom. She had put up a surprisingly good fight, but the rich and spoiled little girl could not stand up to Blossom's deadly power. Buttercup stared sadly at Princess's body, which had been impaled on the wall of a vast hallway with a sword that had been meant for decoration. Her head was limp, blood pouring from her mouth as her jaw had been ripped off. She was also missing her right leg, and her hair was frizzy and matted with blood.
I'm sorry,
Buttercup murmured to her dead foe.
You were cold, heartless, nasty, and a pain in our butts, but you did not deserve this.
With difficulty, she pulled the sword from Princess's stomach, making her body fall to the floor with a wet... Just as she cradled Princess in her arms, a door opened, and Princess's father, King Morbucks, came into the hall. He froze at the sight. Blood splattered along the floor and walls, vases and paintings lying in pieces on the stained carpet, and the lone Powerpuff Girl clutching his daughter's bloody and lifeless body. He and Buttercup stared at each other for a moment, King Morbuck so horrified that he couldn't speak, though tears started welling up in his eyes. Buttercup felt so sorry for him as he dropped to his knees and sobbed. She sighed and carried Princess over to him, setting her body in front of him, which he clutched desperately. Buttercup's heart, already broken, ached even more as she calmly pulled out her axe blades and slashed his neck. He collapsed to the floor on top of Princess's body, head lopping at a strange angle, as the neck had not been completely severed, hanging on by a bit of flesh and sinew. There was no point in cleaning up, for the only reason she was going to in the first place was to keep King Morbucks from seeing his daughter. Well, now it didn't matter. Looking down at her once green dress, she saw the massive amount of blood soaked into the fabric, and decided that they couldn't just spend the rest of their lives wearing tainted clothes. Though it felt disrespectful, Buttercup gathered up some rucksacks and filled them with some of Princess's clothes. She also decided to raid the kitchen for food, seeing as how there wasn't much in Mojo's lair. For good measure, Buttercup also took a white stuffed animal rabbit from Princess's room to give to Bubbles.
I'm back,
called Buttercup emotionlessly as she flew through the broken roof.
In here,
said Bubbles, and Buttercup found her and Blossom in the bathroom. Blossom was in the bathtub, looking very sickly and depressed, and Bubbles was hovering above her, washing her hair.
What did you do with Princess?
Bubbles,
Buttercup started, and Bubbles paused, looking to her sister.
Her father saw her. He was absolutely heartbroken. I didn't get rid of Princess's body.
So, what did you do?
Asked Bubbles slowly.
I brought them back together.
What is that supposed to mean?
I killed him.
Bubbles hovered in the air for a moment, and then went back to washing Blossom's hair.
I've lost all respect for you,
she muttered.
Bubbles, you didn't see him,
Buttercup insisted, trying to convince herself that her action was justifiable.
He completely broke. He really cared for Princess, much more than it seemed. It was a mercy killing.
Sure,
said Bubbles, rinsing Blossom's hair.
Mercy.
They were quiet as Bubbles lifted Blossom out of the tub and wrapped her in a towel. The poor thing didn't seem to be aware of her surroundings, simply staring off into space.
I brought some stuff,
Buttercup said quickly, following her sisters into the main room.
Clothes and food and stuff, and this, for you.
She held up the rabbit, and Bubbles took it.
I don't even know if I want to accept this,
she said.
You need it,
Buttercup insisted, and Bubbles nodded, hugging the rabbit. The three of them sifted through the clothes Buttercup had brought so that they could get dressed into something clean. Blossom started coming back to her normal self again, though she was overcome with guilt as she helped her sisters put the food in the kitchen that had also been taken from the mansion.
I'm sorry.
Blossom croaked to her sisters once they finished organizing things and were sitting at the table.
I'm so scared. I don't understand what's happening to me.
How long do you think it'll be before the cops find us here?
Asked Bubbles dully. Buttercup shrugged, resting her chin on the table.
My question is, why hasn't this happened to you yet?
She asked Bubbles.
I don't know, and I don't care. I hope it never happens.
Me too,
said her sisters together. About a week went by without any problems, except for the occasional trance Blossom seemed to go into as her sanity fluctuated. Buttercup took to staying up all night to make sure Blossom didn't fly off, and the lack of sleep was giving her dark shadows beneath her tired green eyes. Nothing bad had happened to Bubbles yet, but she spent most of her time sitting on the bed, clutching the stuffed bunny and staring out the window at the city. A couple of monsters came and went, but otherwise Townsville seemed all right. She felt so lonely, missing the professor, the mayor, Miss Bellum, and everyone that was still alive. Even though she wanted to just give herself up, she didn't want to leave her sisters. Things went south extremely fast when they were met with 3 unexpected visitors. The girls were all sitting together in the main room when they heard voices above them, all male.
What happened?
Said one.
There's a big hole in the roof. Maybe those stupid little girls came to beat him up and he hasn't fixed it yet.
The girls all looked at each other and stood quickly, knowing those voices very well. 3 boys suddenly descended into the lair through the hole, and they gasped in angry surprise at seeing them.
What are you sissies doing here?
Snarled Brick, the redhead. The girls couldn't answer, Buttercup holding Blossom's hand, as she had started to shake.
Where's Mojo Jojo?
Demanded Boomer, the blonde one.
Why do you look so bad?
Asked Butch, the black-haired boy. When they were met with no response, they all snapped,
Well?
Have you not been in Townsville for the past week?
Buttercup squeaked, trying to sound angry.
No,
Said Brick.
We've been in Citiesville. It's a much nicer place than boring old Townsville. Plus, you're not there.
Butch laughed.
So we can cause as much trouble as we want, and there ain't a darn thing you can do about it. Gee, why is that, Butch?
Asked Boomer in mock curiosity.
It's because that whole town hates the Powerpuff Girls!
Butch exclaimed, and the Rowdy Ruff boys roared with laughter. Buttercup yelped, and the boys stopped, confusion on their faces. Blossom had pulled out her blades, and because Buttercup had been holding her hand, she had gotten a small cut.
Blossom, no!
Buttercup whimpered, but her pink eyes told Buttercup that Blossom was no longer there.
What are those?
Asked Brick slowly, actually looking scared at the sharp metal sword sticking out of the little girl's arms.
Please, Blossom, no!
Pleaded Buttercup again. Bubbles was merely watching, sadness plain on her face. She met the eyes of her male counterpart, who furrowed his brow in confusion.
Run!
She mouthed. However, before Boomer could relay the command to his brothers, Blossom had shot forward and thrust one of her blades straight through Brick's chest. His blood stained his shirt a darker red, and he slowly fell to the floor.
What the hell?
Butch screamed, but Blossom went after him next. He dodged, and both Boomer and Buttercup rushed at Blossom, Boomer trying to hit her and Buttercup trying to restrain her.
What are you doing?
Buttercup bellowed at Boomer as she wrapped her arms around her sister's waist.
Go! Run! You killed my brother!
Boomer shouted, but before he could throw an attack, Blossom ripped out of Buttercup's hold and slashed Boomer across the cheek. A generous amount of blood burst out, which hit Bubbles in the face. She didn't even flinch.
Boomer! He's still breathing!
Butch said, holding Brick in his arms, who was panting violently, clutching his chest. Just as he said that, Blossom went for him again, but Buttercup tackled her to the floor and punched her in the face.
Stop it!
She shrieked.
Don't you love me?
Blossom whimpered as tears streamed down her face.
Don't do this to me! Please don't do this to me!
Butch and Boomer began helping Brick up so that they could carry him out, but Boomer looked at Bubbles. Something about her was off, and for some reason, he was hit with extreme sadness and pity for the little Powerpuff. In the moment he had paused, Blossom broke free from Buttercup and took a blind slash at the boys, but they were able to leap out of the way. Unfortunately, this caused Brick a great deal of pain as he hit the floor. The Rowdy Ruff boys watched, wide-eyed, as Blossom stepped closer, her weapons at the ready.
What has happened to you?
Butch whimpered, his usual toughness gone. Blossom didn't answer. Butch and Boomer's eyes shot to Buttercup, who had come to stand next to her sister, and they were horrified to see the axe blades protruding from her own arms.
Buttercup, please! I'm sorry,
she sniffled, raising her weapons in the air as she prepared to deliver a deadly blow, Blossom doing the same. Just then, sirens wailed outside, and Blossom jumped in fright. Buttercup hadn't been fast enough to stop her attack, but the distraction threw off her aim, and the only amount of damage she managed to do was dismember Butch's leg. He cried out in agony, which brought Blossom's attention back to them, but before she could do anything, Boomer screamed and blasted both girls across the room. In a flash, he and his brothers were gone from the lair. The sirens sounded as though they were underwater to Bubbles, as did the screams and yells as the police below the volcano were slaughtered by her sisters. She simply stood there, clutching her bunny, which was speckled with blood like her face. Her mind was blank, her body was cold, and her heart was numb. Bubbles didn't pay much attention as Blossom and Buttercup beckoned her to follow them before any more reinforcements arrived. She obeyed, not looking at the massive amount of crimson below, and the girls flew away as fast as they could. They ended up landing in a clearing of the forest where Fuzzy Lumpkins had lived. The girls sat against a fallen tree, Blossom sobbing into her bloody arms. Bubbles watched a beetle maneuver through the grass and leaves on the ground, wishing she could be as carefree as a simple bug.
Do you think Brick will be okay?
She mumbled. Buttercup sighed, rubbing her temples. She was just as bloody as her sister.
I don't know, okay?
She grumbled.
I'm tired. I don't want to worry about some stupid boy.
That stupid boy doesn't deserve to die,
said Bubbles.
So, Blossom!
Buttercup growled, looking at her.
Where are we going to go now? Who are we going to murder next? How far are we going to have to leave a blood trail behind us before this is over?
Blossom continued to sob.
I don't know,
she wailed.
I don't even want to live anymore. Don't say that, said Buttercup softly.
We need you.
We just need to figure out how to end this nightmare.
I would say I don't want anyone else getting hurt,
said Bubbles quietly.
But it'd be pointless. More people are going to get hurt.
Bubbles, we'll be fine.
Don't!
Bubbles screamed, and her sisters flinched.
You keep saying we'll fix this, or we'll figure this out. I don't want to kill anymore. Blossom, stop killing people. You have just as much blood on your hands as she does. The only difference is you're not going crazy. So don't say everything is going to be okay, because it's not!
Bubbles huffed angrily, and then she simply shifted so that she had her back to them.
I guess I was just trying to convince myself,
said Buttercup guiltily. Just then, Blossom stood up and shot away. With a cry of alarm, her sisters went after her.
Blossom, where are you going?
She didn't answer, but flew like a rocket as fast as she could over Townsville. Luckily, no one saw them, but Buttercup became worried when they entered the sketchy part of the city.
Blossom!
Buttercup tried again, but Blossom suddenly descended, and they continued to follow. To Buttercup's surprise, they had arrived at the Gangrene Gang's hideout. She groaned, and Bubbles was hit with the first wave of strong emotion she had felt in days. She was panicking, knowing what was going to happen, and she wanted to stop it.
Blossom, please,
said Buttercup, but Blossom let out a violent growl, and Buttercup recoiled in fear.
Help me,
she said to Buttercup, her swords bursting from her arms. Trying to hold back more tears, she brought out her axes. She didn't want to do this, but him was right. She had to be loyal to her sister, no matter what.
Powerpuff Girls!
Shouted Ace as Blossom kicked the door open. His angry surprise turned into terrified shock as he glanced at their weapons.
What the?
Yo, boss! I think the Powerpuff Girls have gone local!
Exclaimed little Arturo, and all 5 of them took a defensive stance. Blossom grinded her teeth, her eyes blank as she stared right into Ace's sunglassed face. Buttercup gave a dry sob, just wanting to get it over with. In her emotional desperation, she shot forward and brought her right axe down vertically, completely slicing little Arturo in half.
Jesus Christ!
Ace shouted, and he made to run for the door, but Blossom slashed him. Luckily, he moved out of the way just in time, so the only thing that got hit were his sunglasses. They flew off of his face and smashed on the floor. When she swung at him again, he threw himself to the floor and crawled under the table. Snake was already under there as well. Big Billy let out a shriek that none of them had ever heard from him, and it scared Ace even more. He wanted to do something, but he was much too frightened. Snake met his eyes, wordlessly asking, "What do we do?" Ace shook his head quickly, trembling from the trauma. He had to keep from screaming when Grubber's limbless and headless torso landed beside the table. Ace covered his mouth, resisting the urge to vomit. Blossom and Buttercup seemed to be having trouble with Big Billy, for he was still screaming and crying, his heavy footsteps quick and staggering. Snake suddenly squeaked as Bubbles knelt on the floor to peer at them. He and Ace made to back away, but she hurriedly beckoned them toward her.
Run!
She hissed.
Run! Before they see you!
Ace and Snake exchanged looks before darting out from under the table and out the window. They tried to ignore their brief glance of Big Billy, who was still stumbling around, but missing half of his skin. Bubbles watched them, hoping that they'd get a far enough distance away to not be tracked down and killed. At last, the chaos ceased, and Bubbles unwillingly turned her attention to the scene. Blossom sat in the far corner, curled into a tight ball and rocking back and forth, eyes wide. Buttercup was sobbing as she looked at the blood on her own hands, then at the 3 mangled corpses on the wooden floor of the tiny shack.
I'm sorry,
She kept muttering. Bubbles didn't want to look at the gore any longer, so she stepped outside and sat against the wall. Tears ran down her face, but she didn't sob, just simply stared at the dead grass. Then her sisters began talking, and she listened carefully.
Why?
Buttercup croaked.
We needed somewhere to go,
Blossom replied.
Couldn't we have just told them to leave? Why did we have to kill them? Because they'd come back with help,
said Blossom, her voice emotionless.
And we'd be found again. Where's Ace and Snake?
Asked Buttercup quickly.
I don't care. You don't care that they escaped, but you care if cops come back to take us away? How is that logical?
Buttercup laughed coldly.
Oh, wait, you can't think logically anymore. You've gone completely insane, and I'm helping you with this crap. I don't want to do this, but I'm your sister, aren't I? And apparently I don't love you if I don't help you slaughter people. No one will miss them. That's not the point!
Bubbles continued to listen to the bickering as a little squirrel trotted in front of her a few yards away.
Cheep, cheep, cheep.
She called gently, getting the squirrel's attention.
Cheep, 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 cheep.
The small rodent bounded up to her and gave a little chatter in reply.
Cheep,
said Bubbles. The squirrel curled up in her lap, and she started to stroke its soft fur. After a minute, the squirrel shrieked, and it dashed away from Bubbles, its shoulder bleeding. Eyes wide and body trembling, Bubbles slowly looked at her arms. They were covered in horribly sharp metal spikes, each about 3 inches long and 1 inch thick at their base. The cluster stopped at her elbow.
No,
she whimpered, and she finally broke out in sobs. It was a stroke of luck that she hadn't accidentally killed the squirrel, and hoped that its injury was small, but it didn't change the fact that it had finally happened to her. She was a weapon. The other two were still arguing as Bubbles quietly walked back into the house. They froze when she held up her arms, and Blossom whimpered, anxiously running her hands through her bloody hair. Buttercup covered her face at the sight of the horrid spikes on her innocent sister's arms, and she just wanted to crawl into a cave and never come out. Bubbles dismally retracted the spikes, hanging her head. Just then, Blossom spoke, almost inaudibly.
We're so stupid.
We?
Buttercup repeated.
You are stupid! This wouldn't have happened if we just would have gone for help after you killed Mojo Jojo! No, what I mean is,
Blossom said calmly, standing up.
The answer was in the professor's lab the whole time. What are you talking about?
Buttercup asked slowly.
Antidote X,
she explained.
If we get rid of our powers, it'll get rid of the weapons too. I admit, that's the best idea you've had in weeks,
Buttercup growled.
But what are we supposed to do after, huh? Go back into Townsville and say, don't worry, we're safe and normal. Everything is dandy. We'd have to go somewhere else,
said Blossom.
Start over. We're children. We can hardly take care of ourselves even with powers. We have only 2 other options,
said Blossom.
Turn ourselves in and get put to death, or kill ourselves. What sounds more appealing? Starting over,
Buttercup grumbled.
Living with the guilt is punishment enough, but getting rid of our powers is what we deserve. Bubbles, how did those spikes show up?
asked Blossom.
I was petting a squirrel.
She replied.
Did you kill it?
asked Buttercup, choking up slightly, and Bubbles shook her head.
Thankfully, I only grazed its shoulder. It's only a matter of time before Bullet finds out that the Powerpuff Girls are bad.
Oh my God!
said Blossom loudly, and the other two jumped.
I hope this didn't happen to Bullet, too! If we were to go find her, we'd have to do it after we took the antidote,
said Buttercup.
I am not taking any chances on accidentally hurting her or any other animal.
Wow, that's so thoughtful.
Bubbles spat sarcastically. Her sisters didn't retort.
So what? Are we going to sleep with a bunch of dead bodies until we sneak back home?
Buttercup asked Blossom angrily.
Let's go take shelter in a box or something,
Blossom replied sadly.
This is worse than when the city hated us for having powers in the first place,
Buttercup murmured, and the three of them flew out of the house into the nearby dump. They found a large cardboard box and crawled into it, huddling together and waiting until nightfall when they'd eventually grow tired and fall asleep. Echoed a sweet voice from somewhere outside the box. Bubbles shifted and opened her eyes. It was dark and cold, the moon waning high in the sky. She wondered if she had imagined the voice, but then heard it say,
Little Bubbles, come here, sweetheart.
Careful not to wake her sisters, she slowly floated out of the box to try and find the source of the voice. Bubbles followed the soothing words throughout the garbage dump, squinting her eyes through the darkness. The voice kept telling her warmer or cooler to guide her, and finally she noticed a red glow behind a huge tractor tire. Peering around it, she saw a scarlet vortex swirling on the side of a broken refrigerator. The voice spoke as Bubbles came closer hesitantly.
Don't be scared, Bubbles.
It cooed.
Come here. Come.
Who are you?
She squeaked, terrified.
Come here, Bubbles.
The voice replied. With a shaky breath, Bubbles entered the vortex. She found herself on a cliff in a vast inferno, flames dancing around her, the surface of the lava bubbling menacingly. There was no sky, just endless blackness. Bubbles shrieked as a cyclone of burning ash appeared in front of her, and as soon as it cleared, she was looking into the smiling crimson face of him.
So good to see you, Bubbles,
he exclaimed airily.
I've missed you so much.
Bubbles held her hands to her mouth, staring up at him. She was terrified.
Aw, didn't you miss me? You break my heart, little cupcake.
Why am I here?
Bubbles whimpered.
Oh, I just wanted to have a little chat, maybe a tea party.
With a poof, both Bubbles and him were suddenly sitting at a table with a flowery pink tablecloth, and in the center was a white ceramic teapot, matching cups sitting at its base. Him nonchalantly poured Bubbles a cup of tea, and then one for himself, though Bubbles did not feel much like drinking it.
Why am I here?
She repeated.
Well, out of boredom, I decided to observe you girls, feeling a bit too lazy to come out and try to destroy you,
said him, sipping at his tea.
And the show is surprisingly eventful.
With a gasp, Bubbles showed him her newly acquired spikes.
Did you do this?
She squeaked, but him waved a claw at her.
No, that wasn't me,
he replied cheerily.
I don't know who the genius behind this plot is, but I give him a round of applause. 5 stars!
Bubbles started sobbing, retracting the spikes and resting against the table, burying her face in her arms. Him pouted.
I see my party isn't cheering you up. Let's invite some friends.
With a snap of his claw, the table was much larger. Looking up, Bubbles shrieked in horror, for sitting in chairs around the perimeter were taxidermied versions of many familiar people. Mojo Jojo, Professor Utonium, Fuzzy Lumpkins, Miss Bellum, the Mayor, Princess and her father, Lil Arturo, Grubber, and Big Billy. Their bodies were thrown crudely back together, all of their eyes and mouths sewn shut, and their skin was still bloody. In front of each of the corpses was a teacup.
There,
said Him softly.
Feel better?
Bubbles didn't respond, knowing full well that Him was tormenting her.
Anyway, I've noticed that you've sort of been a background character in all of this.
What do you mean?
asked Bubbles.
Whereas both of your sisters have killed, you yourself haven't harmed a single soul, save for that little squirrel a few hours ago. But it was just a little accidental scratch. Not only that, but you haven't even helped dispose of any of the bodies. You haven't aided your sisters in any way.
I'm not a bad person,
she retorted, trying to mask her fear with anger.
I help people, not hurt them. I'm afraid of leaving Blossom and Buttercup. Blossom really scares me now.
You've never had the urge to kill someone? Not even a teensy-weensy bit?
Asked him.
No,
said Bubbles truthfully.
and I'm not going to.
Not even with your new and exciting power?
No.
Do you really think you can keep your innocence forever?
Bubbles stared into his green eyes, her lip trembling.
It's already gone.
Bowing her head, she looked at her reflection in her tea.
But why did Buttercup fall into it? Why is she helping Blossom?
Because she knows she needs to be there for both of you,
said him.
She hasn't been there for me!
She's tried to comfort you and still attempts to argue with Blossom.
His smile widened.
But Blossom herself has
Given up on you.
Bubbles flinched at his drastic change of tone.
She feels betrayed that you haven't helped her own sister.
She's not in her right mind!
Bubbles argued.
Once we take the Antidote X, we can start over and repair a relationship.
You believe that?
Him hissed acidly, suddenly teleporting right next to Bubbles, mouth close to her ear. She felt her body freeze up in terror.
Do you think that Blossom is really going to go back to normal when your powers are gone? What do you think she'll do when you try to make it on your own in the real world? Steal? Sell drugs? Get into more risque occupations?
She stammered, her eyes brimming with tears.
And Buttercup will still stick by her side, won't she? She'll do whatever Blossom tells her because she strives to remain loyal. And you'll just sit back and watch as her life deteriorate until there.
Nothing.
Bubbles didn't speak as the table and cadavers disappeared, yet she was still sitting in her chair. Him was standing a few feet away from her, grinning his sinister grin.
But keep working hard, because even when the curtain falls,
The show must go on.
The air was suddenly filled with Bubbles' screams as blackened vines wrapped around the chair, tying her to it so that she couldn't move. More vines held the chair's legs firmly to the ground, and the lava quickly began to rise. It rushed toward her, Him was laughing, and she continued to shriek. Panting, Bubbles opened her eyes, staring at the moon and stars. Covered in perspiration, she shivered in the cold night air, sitting up and looking at the refrigerator in front of her. The portal was gone. Overcome by even more depression, Bubbles rose into the air and slowly made her way back to her sisters.